Great to have you there. We're now joined by Phil Bennett, longtime college football coach, former Baylor defensive coordinator, with us on 365 Sports. How was your Christmas, Phil?
It was excellent. Had all our family here and just very thankful, like most of us.
So let's start with Baylor and LSU. It's the Texas Bowl. You came in a year after Baylor had lost to Illinois. Art hired you to come in the next year after Illinois beat them up in this bowl game. Rule won a game here against Vanderbilt. But let's discuss this game. LSU, there's some guys on that team that are different. They got some difference makers. I don't know how many of them are going to play because some of them are left. They're going to enter the pro portal, whatever. Your thoughts about the challenge for Baylor against LSU and Brian Kelly?
The first thing that comes to my mind in this game is Baylor keeping its groove going. LSU is a name, which I've coached there. It's a great place. I think they match up very well with LSU. It's my people in Baton Rouge tell me that both offensive tackles, the tight end, the Taylor kid, that's an absolute double threat, and then the best receiver, Lacey, are not playing, along with maybe one or two of their corners and a couple of their D linemen. So I think Baylor has a matchup that whether they played or not, I think it would be a really good matchup for Baylor.
Coach, what was your favorite part about coaching during bowl season? And also, what are maybe one or two of the top memories that come to mind from your time at Baylor playing in bowl games?
The first thing that comes to my mind is my first bowl game. And I'll never forget this. When I write my book at Baylor, it will be there. We were so raw defensively, but we patched together that first year. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think we won 10 games.
Mm-hmm.
And we started, and we got a lot of takeaways. We had to do different things because we weren't great talent. Well, we're fixing to go out, Craig, to the game. We're in San Antonio. I couldn't find K.J. Morton. Literally, we're fixing to kick off. And somebody told me that they found him outside at the ticket counter because a group of his people, the tickets got screwed up. And we committed. We go out there. He gets there for kickoff, and Sarkeesian was the head coach at Washington, and it was a shootout. And I swear I'd never forgive him. And this is honest God truth. He gave up like 3 touchdowns because I wore his ass out so bad. And he blamed me. I blamed him. But the game, we ended up winning the game. And I'll never forget Art telling me this. He said, "Coach, relax. We won." I think it was like 56, 53. But,
57, 50 or something like that?
Yeah, something like that. And I swear to God, I said, if we ever go to another bowl, I will never take my eyes off these kids. And, of course, I remember the last bowl.
Yeah.
Art's last game. It was such a good win down in Florida against a very good North Carolina team. And I think during my 6 years there, we were 4-2. I like to work the kids. I think it's a fun time, but I think it's all time. You get some matchups. My most disappointing was really two. Was the UCF. We didn't play very good, and the Michigan State, which we lost it as coaches. We made mistakes and should have won that game, and we kept it. Our decisions kept us from winning it.
67-56 was that game.
It was crazy.
And as you won the game. It's like when I saw you after the TCU game, 61-58. You give up 58, and you're thrilled to death. You won the game.
Yeah. Well, you know what happened? You sit there and you realize, you look at all these games. I mean, look at the Iowa State Miami. This game nowadays is made for offenses. Hell, they want points, and they're getting them. And it's just finding a way to win. I have no idea. People trying to bet these games, how do they bet these games not knowing who's playing? It's a crapshoot.
So we got the second round of the playoffs. Obviously, the first round, in terms of competitiveness, pretty disappointing. I'd imagine it's tough to play a team twice. How tough do you think it is for Ohio State and Oregon to prepare to play a third time?
I've read a lot about Oregon already, sort of writing their swan song. We had to go to this school, we had to go here, we had to go there to play. Well, the truth of the matter is, I mean, the first game they were extremely lucky to win at Oregon. Now, I'm sure there were other aspects in the game they thought they played better, but I see that as being a game that I really think Ohio State can take care of Oregon and maybe beat them, dominantly. It'll be interesting to watch that. But I sort of have that feeling that might happen in the Rose Bowl.
So you faced off against Sarkeesian in 11 down in San Antonio when he was at Washington in that game. A lot has changed in his life, and a lot of things have been incredible with what he's been able to bounce back from personally, then goes to Alabama. Now when he's got Texas on a roll. As someone that faced him, I've always heard, not just from broadcasts, but that he is a brilliant play caller. What makes him unique as a play caller?
The first time that I faced him, he and Lane Kiffin were co-coordinators at USC. And they had been getting on Bill Snyder. I think it was like around 2000. They had been getting on Snyder about not playing a daunting schedule, So we picked two schools. And he told me, he said, pick who you want to play. Well, at the time before, I didn't know that Pete Carroll was going to get that job. It was like 2 years earlier. I said, we need to play USC because Ohio State had gone through the deal with Tressel, and we didn't want to mess with him. But then, lo and behold, they end up Carson Palmer. They were loaded, and we opened the season in the Coliseum, and there were 90,000 people there. And I'm telling you, half of them were Kansas State people. And Sarkeesian was the play caller, and we beat them 10-6. But I'm going to stop there. I told Bill Snyder after the game, I said, I don't think they're going to lose again. I mean, and because he really did. He had Carson Palmer. He had a what I call a screen package that was unbelievable. He knew how to stretch the field, and he has always believed in running the football. When we played them in 11, we beat them, but probably the reason we beat them is they couldn't run the football on us. So one thing we did, we said, hey, you're not going to beat us running the football, and they almost beat us in the passing game. But he is a guy, I think, at Texas that has gotten better and better of just realizing what the run game does to it devastates the defense. And I think last year you saw him get better and better at that. And I really do. I think he calls an excellent game. And I think when he gets in a rhythm, he's deadly.
Coach, Cam Scatterbo there for Arizona State's obviously a heck of a player. Their quarterback, too. But that's kind of the story is Cam Scatterbo, so a very good Texas defense is going to be keyed in on him. Do you think Arizona State can run the football still, and or what do you think they are capable of doing in this matchup with Texas to make it closer than Vegas and everybody else expects?
Craig, last week against Clemson, and I'm saying this because I believe it, I thought the quarterback at Clemson was the best quarterback on the field last week. I mean, he threw for almost 400 yards, and they did a great job of stopping the run, but Texas did not play great pass defense. I think that if they got to be careful of loading too much up for Scatterbo, because this Michigan State transfer is good enough, and they have good enough receivers to do some damage throwing the ball. So I think they better have a balance with that. I'm not saying that they won't stop Scatterbo, but he is. I don't think anybody stopped him all year. One of the things I've always said, his yardage can't be significant yards, meaning for points and put him in position for points. He might get 100 yards, but make it consequential on the final score aspect.
Yeah, they run. Arizona State has, as Craig brought up, with Scatterbo, but Texas's defense has not allowed anyone to run on that. Georgia kind of beat them a little bit, kind of thumped them a little bit, but it's like nobody has just taken the ball, and I don't remember, and run it down their throat consistently.
I don't either. I really don't.
Phil Bennett, longtime college football coach, with us Mondays at 5 o'clock here. We're live in Houston today on 365 Sports. You and I were trading a few texts, and we might have even talked on the phone about a week ago when I mentioned to you that we're going to be out for the week of Christmas. And we started to discuss how many innovative offensive coaches that you have coached with in your career. Doesn't have to be the wide open stuff like what Baylor ran, but you have been a part of and worked with some of the most innovative minds in college football on the offensive side. You thought much about that and reflected much on that?
I think I told you, a friend of mine that's a Sports Illustrated writer said they were talking about older coaches. You know, I think there was only like 2 or 3 of us that had coached 6 decades. I started in the 70s, you know, finished in the 2020s. And one of the things that come up, they said, let's look who all his head coaches were. Well, you know, the guy that first gave me my first job was Emory Bellard, invented the wishbone. And you know, Lord knows what, you know, you can go all the way back to Alabama, U.S., you know, with Bear Bryant took the wishbone, and Oklahoma. And, you know, what Emory did was totally, you know, changed the history of the game. And then when I went to Kansas State, you know, Bill Snyder built that program back from non-competitive at any level to a national championship caliber program with a quarterback run game. And then being fortunate enough to go to Baylor at a time where Art Briles was not only playing fast, but we spread the field from sideline to sideline, and you couldn't sub, you couldn't, you know, everything was tempo. So, and I'd never really thought that, but I knew I'd seen a lot of things, and it was probably 3 of the most innovative things probably in the last 50, 60 years of college football that's happened, and it's happening right now in the NFL. It's interesting.
Yep. I watched that game last night between Penix, Atlanta, and Jaden Daniels in Washington.
Wow.
My goodness. As a Washington fan, I was like miserable and happy, and yet again, just watching these 2 young quarterbacks coming straight out of the college game and making an impact. Penix first start, but man, are those kids fun to watch.
You know, one of the things, Smokey, that I thought Cliff and the coordinator with the Falcons, they're using their ability. You know, if you watch the Jets versus Buffalo, I mean, Aaron Rodgers all drop back, getting hammered, and then you get the quarterback at Buffalo, the movement game. You know, I got a text the other night from Aaron Glenn, who I'm close to, and he said, "Coach, I want to ask you a question about." And it was the power read. They had just played Buffalo. And he said, how do you play this? You know, the college game, especially just like you said, with quarterback like Daniels, I think he had 100 yards rushing, did he not?
127.
127.
Yeah.
I mean, and it is a different time and age for these defensive coordinators in the NFL.
All right. I want to go back to with Baylor and LSU tomorrow at 2:30. And we've seen this team and the story and the journey. You've been there every week, and there were times when when BYU was up on them 21-0, 28-7 after they'd blown the game against Colorado, that I just no way they were going to turn this season around, and especially not to the point where they are now. They just stayed patient and yet maybe tweaked a little bit here and there. Phil, just can you kind of like grade or give your summary of what you've seen since you were in the game for 40-plus years and what they did with this team this year, no matter what happens tomorrow?
I think you can remember when we talked. Obviously, I defended Coach Aranda at Colorado. I liked what he did. I just didn't think they got it executed, and I didn't think they played it right. The next week, I mean, it was like we were, you know, we didn't show up, and it was a mindset. And we all talked about how do you come out of this, and you know, one of the things that we all said, and I pounded on, is, hey, don't listen to the naysayers, close the doors, It's us. It only matters what we think. We're the only ones that can get out of this together. I think Dave Aranda and that staff did a magnificent, just a unbelievable job of keeping the kids involved, keep them determined, and keeping them with a focus of saying, we can do this. And that's where it starts. That's without question. And now the players say, you know what? These guys believe in us. They think we're better than what we've shown, and they're going to be better. And I'm sure in those meetings, I'm sure those coaches told them, hey, there's some things we screwed up too. One of them, we played the wrong quarterback, and then we got to do this on defense. I think Dave got more involved with the defensive play calling, which I think was instrumental. And I don't know that for sure, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. I think that they said, all right, we've got a quarterback, and I think it took off from there. It lit fuses saying, hey, if we get a stop, they'll score. And then the offense says, hey, if we score, they're going to hold them. We're going to win some games. And then I think the opposite effect, it became contagious. The optimism, the expectancy changed. And I truly believe that throughout that thing, Dave Aranda never changed. I don't think Dave's going to get up and lead cheers or any of that stuff. But I think what he did, he said, if we're willing to do these things, we can come out of this. And they did. And I think it's been – I think tomorrow at 2:30, it can be a great season-ending victory as Baylor's had probably since 2012 when we beat UCLA so soundly.
Yeah, you did, and hammered them on defense, but also didn't have to throw the ball much, physically beat them up. They had another edge commitment, another transfer portal, a kid from Oregon. They got an edge rusher from Tulane. They've got players from A&M and Alabama, Louisville, Auburn, Oregon, among some of the other schools in the not FCS, but the G5s where you can find transfer portal. They seem to be taking advantage of the momentum, which they didn't do 4 years ago.
Kids that go there, it's like Eddie Lackey told me, he goes, I didn't know anything about Baylor. And then when I got there, I thought, wow, what a hidden gem. And you know what? I'll be honest with you. Even though I played against them in college, the run that we had was good as anywhere you've ever been at any level. And I think that they will seize the moment. And I think, once again, let's make sure, those portals, it doesn't change. It's still recruiting, Smokey, and you've got to pick the right ones. You can't pick guys in the portal especially that can't play because there is not going to be red shirts. It's not going to be developed. Their ass better be able to help you next year.
Hey, man, Happy New Year to you, Coach. Thank you very much for your time.
Happy New Year to you guys.
You too.
Let's get this win.
Yes, sir. Phil Bennett. I love the way